You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey. Formerly,
You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey. This is an in-person interview here in my studios in Austin, which makes it way more fun. And today, we're going to talk about the birth of the modern fitness movement with Lavinia Errico, who's the founder of Equinox and doing something new called Move Joy. I'm interested in how companies and movements form. And clearly, I started the biohacking movement, so I've practiced this. But I like talking with people who've created something big and something that lasts to see what I can learn and to see what you can learn from it as well. So let's figure out why we're all working out the way we are with one of the people who made it happen, and also look at what's next, because it's probably not what you think it's going to be. Lavinia, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
We're also going to talk about spirituality and biohacking and what it takes to be an entrepreneur at scale like that, and the self-management that's a part of it. And also, how do you do it when you're a woman? Because maybe it's different than doing it as a man. Maybe not. We're gonna go deep on that. All right, Lavinia, let's go back to the foundations of Equinox. It's the 80s, and you're at a bar late at night. Okay, I don't know. But what was going on? Tell me how this worked.
First of all, I had lived in California first. And I was in LA, and I was actually teaching aerobics. And
did you have like a jazzercise leotard and like the leg warmers and all that?
Something a little close to that. Yeah, I was definitely full in that look. I kind of think of it as like the Jane Fonda look.
It was totally a look in the 80s. I don't know why we had the leg warmers, but they were kind of cool at the time.
No, they looked great.
Yeah, they kind of did. I was like fur leggings.
I was a dancer before, so we always wore leg warmers. It was this part of the uniform and the culture. So I was very comfortable wearing them. So when I moved back to New York, I was actually shocked that the workout community there was like dull. It just wasn't great. I mean, I remember walking into a health and racket club, and like the men were walking around with like their black socks on from their suits and barefoot. And it was just like, wow, like this is so antiquated. Like somebody needs to build something here in the city. And there were a couple of like great studios, but there wasn't something that had it all. Like there wasn't something that had great bodybuilding, great working out, great classes, great vibe, clean. And I mean, I was working out in like the dirty, dingy workout gym, underground with no windows.
Yeah, that really good air.
Yeah, it was just really like, ooh, it's not your way that you want to start at 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. So, and my brothers and I lived on the Upper West Side, and we were kind of complaining a lot, or maybe I was the one complaining, like, someone needs to open a gym. Someone needs to open a gym. And then finally, at one point, we sort of looked at each other, and I feel like, at least this is my recollection, it was like, well, maybe we should do this. And we were going to keep our daytime jobs. We were just going to open up a little gym on the Upper West Side that we could work out with, our friends could work out with, and that was going to be it. And all of a sudden, we're pre-sailing, and it was just like, it was amazing. I don't think we even expected how successful it was going to be. We knew that we wanted it, but we weren't sure. And then we opened up our first gym. It was 7,000 square feet.
That was so huge.
Small. It was such
my upgrade lab's like 2,600.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
I'm like, we're using
I mean,
AI
now they're
stuff.
like at 40,000, the Equinoxes. But our first one was a small gym.
It's a lot of square footage to me.
And we opened up, and it was like, and it really was an instant success. It was really about timing and location. And I do believe we put in something that was different. Like, we had our biggest competition when you joked at a bar, our biggest competition at that time was happy hour.
Wow.
Everybody went from work to happy hour. Like, it wasn't the culture that we're going to go to the gym and work out. Like, that wasn't part of the culture,
So you had to make a cultural change for Equinox.
And we had to kind of make it a place where people really wanted to go.
So what does it mean? What did you change?
I mean, first of all, it had to be sexy. We put in a place that was beautiful.
As opposed to like Muscle Beach or
Exactly.
guys grunting with barbells.
Exactly. Impeccably clean. Again, style. Like the lighting mattered, the architecture mattered, the interiors mattered, and then the people there. In the beginning, I feel like it was like all about beautiful people. I mean, that's how it was in those days. And you just hired these. And in New York, it was so easy because you had all these models and actresses that were aspiring. So we just hired these great people. And the truth is, we were brother and sister. So everybody that came along, they felt like they were part of the Equinox family.
Mm.
So right away, it wasn't even deliberate. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to create this culture that's going to make a family. It just happened organically because we were family, and then they became family. And before you know it, everybody was like, we're the Knox family, So the culture was just so built on, and we truly loved what we were doing. We wanted this for so long,
Was it hard to work with your brothers? I mean, you grew up, there's always, he punched me when I was 6 kind of vibe.
I mean, there's always awkward moments, for sure. But I think overall, first of all 3 of us did something a little bit different. So we weren't with each other every minute of the day. My one brother was he was doing all the real estate, raising all the money, doing all of that. He was even helping to make sure the vibe was really amazing and sexy and all that. And then the other brother was all about the building and the design and all and that. And then I was really creating the best group fitness program that we could have. And, all the other things, the fitness program and some of that crossed over for sure, with us because let's face it, when you're starting a business, you have to wear every hat.
Oh, yeah, totally.
There isn't that's not my job description. Everything is your job description.
Yeah, a lot of entrepreneurs, it's always that way when you start. And then a lot of people never stop doing that and then they don't grow. And over time you specialize. And I've seen probably more family businesses fail because of family conflicts than not. So you managed to do that. I had one business where a family member actually tried to steal the business from me. I had to remove 2 people from my family. They're by blood, but they're no longer considered part of my family. You can divorce, you can choose your family.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
When I went down the lawsuit with that and did discovery, this was a premeditated criminal act, based on greed and jealousy and things like that. And so, and I've heard so many entrepreneurs say this. So you guys somehow managed to do that. So did you decide ahead of time? Here's what our kind of division of labor is?
No.
So that you'd have some kind of...
No, it was all just,
you had a really strong family and it worked.
We've had amazing work ethic. We really did. And I feel like there was just no ego.
It's beautiful.
There wasn't an ego. We all the focus was on how do we make this so special. We wanted to make it that everybody that came into Equinox, that they were just going to be wowed. Wow, this is unbelievable. Yeah. Wow, that class was awesome. Wow, that was the best workout. Wow, I had the best trainer. Wow, that was our focus. And the truth is we were so clear on what our principles were, what our values were, that everybody else around us took on that same energy. Your staff, I always tell leaders, you have to walk the walk, baby. You can't give anything you don't own. So you have to own that. And for us, it was we owned that passion of just truly wanting to create the most amazing place that people wanted to come to. I can't tell you how many times people would be like, oh, I'm playing hooky from work today because my favorite teacher's teaching at 4:30. Cool. It was amazing. You're just wow, I can't believe that. Because in the beginning, working out was a 4-letter word. I got to work out. I got to do it. There was no joy. There was no excitement. There was no let me go and play hooky to go and work out. When you see that you're changing people's lives like that, and for me, movement was always medicine to me. I started moving at 5 as a dancer, so that I always found my back to my alignment, back to my balance from moving. And I always wanted everyone to have that. And I was always kind of shocked growing up that a lot of girls didn't want to move like that. Like I always wanted to climb the tree and play, play hopscotch and play jump rope. Like movement was just like, that was my joy. And it was like, how do you take those same elements as a kid? Like you're not as a young person, you're like, I'm going to go outside and burn 1,000 calories today, jumping rope.
Right.
Like you don't do that. You're like, I'm going out to play.
Right.
And it was that joy of just playing and moving and being on the swings and being on the bars. And like, that was the energy that we wanted to bring into the gym, that same energy of fun and really making people like get excited, like overly excited. I mean, you see how passionate I get.
Oh yeah, totally. You light up when you talk about it.
I know. It's like amazing.
There's today $400 million of ghost gym memberships every year. I found that out when I was doing the research for the Upgrade Labs fundraising deck, which is different, very different than Equinox or other things that are kind of out there. But I just realized, so there's people, and I don't think those are mostly Equinox memberships.
Right.
That's a higher end.
Yeah, that just don't come.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who sort of want to, but don't. What are we going to do for the people who recognize I probably ought to, and I buy it, but they don't find it fun, or they're not getting value for $12 a month or whatever they're spending
right.
At some of these lower end places? What's the solution to bring joy back into our movement practice, just into life?
First of all, I think you have to know who you are. I think very often, I'll just use the analogy of an animal. Like somebody is a turtle, but they're going to train like they're a lion. Like they're never going to find joy in that because they have to just honor, this is how I move. This is what happens, like, especially in the beginning, like, this is my natural rhythm. Then you build on there. So once you like connect to that natural rhythm of who you are, the way your body just naturally wants to move, or maybe how it doesn't want to move. And then we find some ways to find that. And then before you know it, you start moving in a way and you're like, oh, that's not so bad. Like today I taught a class, Move Joy. And one of the girls told her girlfriend afterwards, she goes, I hate cardio. I hate cardio, she said. And I loved everything about that. And I was sweating and she had my heart going. I'm aware that my like sweet spot is the people that don't move. And maybe because I've been a dancer since I'm 5 and, I had to teach dance to be part of this professional group by the time I was 14. I feel like I'm really good at taking people who have 2 left feet and get you to move. And because of that, I started cultivating a way where I can find ways to teach people how to like have the joy of movement. So that's what I would say is when you go to a class, like say, okay, look at the schedules and try to like find out, go in and speak to like the group fitness director and find out exactly what kind of classes are there and try to find the class that sounds like your movement style might really work. Like you just can't pop into any class. Like you pop into a HIIT class.
Yep.
Oh, you're going to loathe it. It's going to be horrific. I mean, I have classes that I won't go into, and I'm an avid mover because I know I'm going to not enjoy it. And I want to come back the next day. I want to feel good. Like I'm 63 years old. It's not about looking good in a bikini. It's not about being ripped. Thankfully, I'm out of that stage. I went through that when I was very young and, had to make sure my body fat never got over 16%. Thank God I'm done with that. I'm at a stage in my life where I want to wake up and just feel good. I want to feel really, really good. Like that's important to me. And my movement is part of that. Like, how do I stay in that zone? Now I do, I mountain bike, I do other things that I find joy in that. And I'm probably one of the only women that love going uphill, and I do not ride on an electric bike.
So you're a masochist, kind of.
But I love it. It's like, but it took me a while to get there.
Okay.
Like it took me a while.
Like eating kale, like it tastes like crap, but you just learn to tell yourself you like it. Is it like that?
I do a lot of mindset work as well. So I do have that way of being able to go there. But I just think you have to know who you are and know where you're going to find joy in that movement. And don't be afraid to ask when you go into a gym and sit down and say, I would like to have a meeting with the group fitness manager and really find the right class for me. And you may have to try a few classes.
It makes sense. I've said the same thing even for yoga. I mean, there's so many flavors of yoga, and I talk about this sometimes. A lot of listeners don't know, but I've spent years doing yoga. And my favorite type is called Anusara, which is not that common anymore. It was actually the most fun yoga. But within that, there's Iyengar and Anusara, and there's all these different forms. And if you're saying, I want to start yoga, I don't know what to do. It was just me. I walked in, I don't know what's going on. And so I tried a bunch of different ones to find the one that worked for me.
I would also like to say, though, that I think I remember his class and it was very user-friendly.
That was why I liked it, yeah.
And that's why people liked it. It was a user-friendly class. And I think sometimes these instructors, like there's only 1% that are really yoginis. Like, hello, like
true.
We need to cater to the others. Like, yes, there should be an advanced class. But like most of these classes should not have handstands and all this stuff in it. Because we are alienating all of these people. We are intimidating them. They're not going to want, and more importantly, they're going to get injured.
That is true. I probably had a couple yoga injuries along the years there, but I deserved all of them because I was going to classes more advanced than I should have until I could do all the advanced poses. In fact, I was doing crow pose, kicking back to plank, which is relatively advanced.
That's amazing.
But I stubbed my toe. Stub your toe, what the heck? Well, it was such a bad stub that the toe started fusing and I had to have a joint correction years later because I didn't treat it well. But like you can do stuff like that. But okay, the fact that I could do crow pose at all was awesome. And then the kickback thing is one of those things that's like, ooh, fancy. And I actually could still do that to this day. I'm just a little bit more careful because I realize like injuries aren't what you want. It's like you don't have to do the full twist. But the point here is, you can go to an Equinox, and you guys were, as far as I know, the first health club that really had quality yoga instructors in it. I've had some yoga instructors on the show, and I find the fusion of being able to get whatever you need to do in one place really interesting. So you're the person who drove that, which is kind of cool. I guess it was just that you're like, I don't feel good at the normal weight places, and you wanted to have access to weights. You wanted to do group fitness that wasn't grungy.
Right.
And then you wanted access to yoga. So you kind of stacked all this stuff up.
But I want to also say something. I think also it was about building community.
Okay.
Before people even talked about community, I really feel like that was a big superpower of what we did. And possibly it also happened organically because we were 3 siblings and we were greeting everybody when they came in. And, my one brother, maybe the group of friends that he attracted would be different than the group of friends I would attract because everybody's got their own vibe and their own thing. Right. And we would introduce everybody to everyone.
Okay.
So it became a very social. I mean, I can't tell you how many relationships, marriages were made there, including our own. It was just a place where, people would say, I live on the Upper West Side. And I used to go to Cinderella for this, and I would go to the West Side Market for that, and I would go here. But I would never know anyone. I never knew anybody. I'd go to Isabella's to eat. And they're like, now Equinox came in. And now wherever I go, it's like, my whole community and neighborhood completely transformed.
Wow.
And, because New York's not usually like that. Unless you have kids in school, that go to the school. Sure. So there was such magic in that it really became this community and people just knew each other. It was really unbelievable. That was definitely part of the magic.
When did you step out? I've actually met with Harvey at Equinox headquarters in New York. Just amazing human being.
We hired a Harvey.
You did? Okay.
Yeah,
How long ago? When did you know you were ready to
Okay, first of all, I'm terrible with these dates. Okay, so we started looking. I remember at first, 5 years in, some people started talking to us, so it must have been about
big, mean VC types?
Yeah, well, no, it was people people that owned hotels.
Okay.
Some even owned some more gyms. Like maybe we could, do something together. And so they kind of put it in our head. Like that was even a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but we didn't do anything. And then when we thought it was kind of closer, that's when we were like, because we were doing everything. I mean, we had directors and people under us, but we didn't have we didn't have a CEO, we didn't have a COO, we didn't have a CFO. Like we were just doing it all. Like, my brother was taking care of all the finance stuff for sure. And I was taking care of all the, creating new stuff. We created a wellness center and we created a Medi Spa and we created spas and we created, the Equinox Fitness Training Institute because there wasn't really even great training in those days. Like you didn't even have to be a certified trainer. Like, and the certified training that they had was so lame. I mean, it wasn't really very good. So we realized, we're going to have to buckle down and do this ourselves. So, there were just so many. It wasn't just that we were building clubs, the next club and next club and next club. Like that was, when I look back, like that would have been the easy thing. Like just another club, open another club. It was all the other stuff that we were creating, like we were the first wellness center ever in New York City. I mean, honestly, I got hate mail from people saying, I can't believe you're involved in this quackery.
Oh, I love getting emails like that.
But, we opened that up in 1997.
Wow.
Where we had acupuncture, Reiki, rolfing, chiropractic, iridology. We were even trying to figure out how to put in colonics. Like, we were just so ahead of our time.
Just trying everything to see what would stick, right?
Yeah.
It kind of feels like the Upgrade Labs story in Santa Monica, I guess half a block away from Gold's Gym under Arnold's.
Yeah, I know where you are.
Yeah, and just like, let's see what sticks. And it took a long time to figure out what would stick before I would scale it. And it's neat to hear your story about how you did this, because there's a sense of but it's a sense of wonder in the community building.
Right.
If you could go back and tell yourself, your younger self, something when you were starting it, knowing what you know now, what advice would you have for yourself?
The advice I would give myself is I was always proving my worth.
To who?
Even to myself and to everyone else. As a woman in business, trying to be, not trying, but a third partner. As a woman, especially also being a woman that, I had a baby the second year that we opened Equinox.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
And I also had a situation where, I'm not sure if my partners thought that was such a great thing. So it was like, I have to prove that I am worthy of being a third part. And the truth is, like, I just felt like I had to work harder to prove that I could be a good mom and I'm carrying my weight. And like, it was tough, like even emotionally on myself, like, when I look back now, it was tough. Like I just beat myself up,
I know a lot of women with grown children now who are kind of angry about this. Like, it was a bit of a story that I could have this great career and be a great mom, because kind of takes a lot of energy to do either one of those. So they felt like they were always overextended. They were always juggling, always giving up their own health and things like that.
Yeah.
And I hope that we can prioritize motherhood a little bit more in the current generation, because it's kind of a special time, and only women can do that, and to make space for that. And so we also can have a good career, and you can also have time for it. But it does require just recognizing the value of having kids, as well as the value.
Well, it was also a time where it's like, no, women don't need to be an equal partner.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't. Yeah. They could be a 10% partner and be happy with that.
Wow.
Like there's an energy that went on in those days. I mean, it's no different than what happens in Hollywood now. The leading man's making a certain amount, the woman's making less. Like it's still there. Okay, it's still there. But then nobody was talking about it.
Right.
So as women, we just had to hold that in. There was no container to let that fly, right? So you just had to hold it in and you had to just keep proving.
So what would you have told yourself now that you know how things are?
I know. I would have told myself, girl, like, you're magic. Like you are magic. Like just show up and be you and relax and don't think about what anyone else is thinking about. Just you do you. You do your best. Like my best was already a lot. Like I just put a lot of, I still do. I have a work stock. I have a great work ethic. So it was just like, just celebrate that. I just,
Celebrate your work ethic. And the women I know now, the friends who are having babies right now, I am sensing more of a balance there.
Yeah.
And all new moms are struggling with this going, I didn't realize it was going to be energetically this much work. I'm like, how do I balance my company? How do I balance my job? But it feels like there's more balance today than there used to be. And maybe things are getting better.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's happening as well? Do you see that?
I do. I definitely, first of all, people talk about work-life balance. And there's a part of me that, like, as a founder, if you're a founder,
it's unbalanced to be a founder.
I that's how I feel, David. Honestly,
you have to be unbalanced.
When people say to me work-life balance, I'm thinking,
oh, this is my life. It's
I'm
balanced.
not so sure that being an entrepreneur is for you, because being an entrepreneur is so hard. Like I know somehow it's been it's become glamorous and everybody wants to be an entrepreneur and a founder, but
no,
I'm just thinking to myself, it is the hardest. You work 24/7. I remember sleeping with a little tape recorder. So when I wake up with an idea, I didn't want to lose it. And I'd be like, to tape recording it. You never stopped.
It's frenetic when you're starting. One of the more powerful interviews I've seen was with the founder of NVIDIA, the chip making company.
Oh, yeah.
They're, one of the most successful, most valued companies on the planet. And they asked him the same question. Well, if you go back and tell yourself when you were 19 about what to do, he would say, my advice would be, don't do it. Yeah. It's not worth it. Like the amount of suffering you will have to build a big company is unimaginable. And I think he's probably right. No one who hasn't built something big understands just the amount of struggle and suffering and worry and just all the bad stuff that comes your way because you're succeeding. And I think women get it more. It's been said before that, the glass ceiling is probably constructed as much by women as it is by men, right? Mm-hmm. And so it may be even harder for women entrepreneurs. I don't know, I'm not one. But whatever it is, it is like all in energy. And I started Bulletproof when I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, right? And to make sure that the ends meet for the family and to start a company, it's scary. Even though you have community and a mission.
No, I remember there were months where we weren't taking paychecks, and I remember being like, going to the controller and I can't barter my rent because we were bartering everything, right? I'm like, I can't barter my rent. We have to pay, So it's definitely a sacrifice. And I will say this, I invest now in different, entrepreneurs and different products. I very rarely will ever invest when there's one founder. Very rarely. 2 minimum, 3 or in my zone, because I know what it takes. And I know there are certain things you can't buy. You have to be in it,
right?
To be doing what needs to be done. It's not, you can't just pay somebody a paycheck to do that. So it isn't for everyone. And especially sometimes I'll sit down and I'll talk to women. I've mentored women for a while. And there was one woman in particular, super smart. She had her master's and she had children. And it was really I'd listen to her and she's like, oh yeah, I want to go to the school and read at the school. And I want to be able to go and do the party. And I would just kind of listen to the theme of what she was talking about and then her job. And then she got promoted and I said to her at one point, like, okay, what's the 3-year? What's the 5-year? And she's like, CEO. And I was not expecting that. And she was, must have had this horrified look on my face, like, you're really CEO? And she was like, yeah, I want to be CEO. And I was just like, can we talk a little bit about what it takes to be a CEO? Like a real CEO? And I said, you have the brains, no doubt. I said, but I listen to you on all you want to do with your kids. I said, first of all, to get there, these CEOs, they're starting their day, getting up 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 4:30, getting their workout in, getting their reading to see what's going on in the world, emails, depending on what's going on. They're at their first breakfast meeting at 6:45, and then they're at a breakfast and they're at a dinner, and then they're flying somewhere to give a talk. And then they're, I'm like, I don't see that for you. And she's like, but that's not me. And I said, dear, but that's what's going to take to be CEO. Like sometimes I feel like I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but like I'm a truth dealer. I'm going to deal you the truth.
Yeah, I discourage people who aren't entrepreneurs from being entrepreneurs too. I built Bulletproof before I was removed into a $100 million plus company while living on a farm that we built on Vancouver Island.
That's impressive.
But I traveled at least 50% of the time, which is brutal on you biologically. My travel schedule was much worse because I lived on an island, which meant it took me 9 hours to get to LA, even though there's only 3.5 hours of air travel because of borders and all this nonsense. So I did manage to make myself younger and leaner during that time, but I spent $2 million doing it.
Yeah.
And I had breakfast and dinner and lunch actually with my kids every time I was home, which probably is more than most CEOs.
Yeah.
But the amount of absolute nothing else in my life but that was probably not great in the overall scheme of things. But you have a cause and a mission. And if both my wife at the time and I had both been doing that, there's no way we could have had kids.
Right.
Just it wouldn't have worked. Right. And I recognize that. So I'm grateful that, she was there and she also worked on her own stuff around fertility, but not full time because we couldn't do it. I don't know how to do that. So hats off to, especially when you have, both people working really hard, whether it's entrepreneurship or not. But I will say the CEO is the loneliest job. It's the hardest job. And, people don't know it until they've tried it. It's rough. I mean, you get it.
And getting there.
Yeah.
Like the road to being a CEO, like even that, like especially if it's more in a corporate, it's daunting and it's not for everyone. And I think, it's like anything, like when I said to you before, like you have to know who you are. Like that's why I think doing inner work is so important because you get so clear and that clarity is so liberating,
Let's talk about how your path and the inner work you've done. And maybe we'll share some stories about that. I want to talk about what you've done to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then also how that led you into Move Joy, because you have this unique somatic perspective on things. And I've been talking more and more about somatics over the last couple of years in the biohacking movement. Somatics being, if you're new to the world, you haven't heard this, like the felt sense of what's going on inside your body, because that's really where intuition lies.
Yeah.
So how did you get into this inner work? What did you do? What do you do? And how did that move you to Move Joy?
So first of all, we were Equinox had been open, I think about 2.5 years.
Okay.
And I jumped out of bed. It was a Sunday morning because we work 7 days a week. I jumped out of bed and I landed flat on my face.
Ooh, that's a problem.
Yeah. Broke my cheekbone. Thank God my sister was sleeping on my couch.
Like Ariana Huffington.
It's such it's such a similar story. My sister's sleeping there. She says to me, she heard this thump. I'm like, what happened? What happened? She goes, I jump out of bed. End up at Lenox Hill Hospital. And the guy's like, I was in the best shape of my life. Great shape, working out a couple hours a day and, go to early in the morning, work out at night. And he goes, I think you just need to learn how to relax. Yeah, like you're under stress. You're stressed. And I'm thinking like, I can't be stressed. I run it out, I dance it out, I lift it out. Like I really thought in that time, I was probably like 32. No, 30, yeah, 32. I thought that if you were fit, you were healthy.
Yeah, a lot of people, I did too. A lot of people think that.
I
Doesn't seem
thought,
that works.
how could this be? I am so healthy. And then I realized at that moment, well, you can be really fit and unhealthy. So I took about a year and a half, even though we had Equinox, and I kind of was like figuring out, well, okay, what does it really mean to be healthy? And through that journey, thankfully, because we had so many amazing members and members that were a bit older than me, people had contacts for me. So who sent me down to get acupuncture at Dr. Ning? And somebody took me to Siddha Yoga. And I went and started meditation. And I'll be honest, like I sat there and I thought, there's no way. Like I went to a weekend course of meditation and I just, but the gentleman that brought me, I loved his energy. Like there was just something so peaceful. Like I could feel like he would take me to another level of relaxation. And I thought like, I wanted that. I knew that he had something that I wanted. So I kept going back. And then I said, oh, because this is how it always wanted Equinox. We're going to bring meditation to Equinox. And then before you know it, I started bringing meditation classes to Equinox. I brought this guy, Mickey Descend. He was amazing. And he was also a hypnotherapist. Mm-hmm. So I started doing some hypnotherapy with Mickey. And then someone takes me down to Chinatown to do acupuncture. And I swear to God, it was like down in the basement underneath a restaurant.
Not a great place for meditation.
For acupuncture.
Oh, wow.
He doesn't speak any English. He's a third generation from China. And I'm thinking, he gives me these herbs to cook. I cook these herbs up. My neighbors come knocking on the door because they swear that I have dead rats in my...
Dying. So bad.
No, it was like horrible. Like you would get off the elevator and people were like, they'd be following it. And then they're knocking on my door. They're like, Lavinia, what's dead in your apartment? I was like, no, it's Chinese herbs. They're like, you got to stop. Mm-hmm. But I was, okay, so I'm kind of doing that. And then I'm doing the little meditation. I had to bring everything to Equinox because I couldn't leave. We were so busy. And that was actually the beginning of creating the Equinox Wellness Center. So like my breakdown created this wonderful breakthrough of creating this wellness center. So through that, I ended up meeting an amazing woman who took me to meet a new guru at the time that was coming in from India. And I went on his year-long program of meditation. I mean, that was the beginning of like my first time ever hearing the word manifestation, transformation. So I did his year-long program. I was even able to go to India and do a pilgrimage with him, which was pretty amazing. And then from that, it just went into personal development. I started doing Landmark. And then from Landmark, I did the entire curriculum, even went on to be certified to be a forum leader. Not that I ever used it, but it was all for my own self. I did a lot of Indian sweat lodges. I mean,
you've done all
I've done the whole thing.
Similar stuff. I'm not a Landmark.
And I loved it. Like that, the truth of it is, all of that is just what brings me, I love it to this day. Like somebody invites me to something, I'm in. I'm like, yeah, let's go see. I have nothing to lose, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing that's so beautiful from everything is you find a few things from it that feel right for you. Like I'm like, oh, so that's kind of how I create like my day is filled with like, I call them the Lavinia rituals. From the minute I wake up in the morning until the minute I go to bed, I just have all these rituals. And I love the word ritual. There's something about ritualistic that just doesn't feel like habits. Like habit just is a heavy word for me. Yeah. I gotta have a habit, right? I gotta have
smoking habit, heroin habit,
Yeah, but my rituals just feel so good. So it's really from doing all of that. Like I don't think there's anything I've ever done that I didn't take away a couple things and integrate. Because I'm I'm the queen of integration. Like, okay, now how am I going to integrate this? What am I integrating? What feels right for me at this point in my life right now? What do I need? And, I also believe like I remain a student of life. And I believe that's what keeps me youthful and it keeps me young. And it's probably one of my best like biohacking is that I stay curious. I stay full of enthusiasm. Like I never get jaded. Like I'm never one of these people like, oh, like I've done so much. I'm like, tell me, how did it work for you? What was it? Tell me more. Like that's how I keep growing and learning and just feeling really good,
The idea of being curious is so important because if you're feeling afraid of something, the antidote to fear is curiosity. Right? So you really can't be afraid when you go, huh, what is that?
Right.
And it's a very strong mental shift. So a lot of people talk about personal development and they don't know it, but it triggers unconscious and almost invisible fear. And then that leads to procrastination or you just never call the guy back and you just sort of go a different direction. And you don't know that's your body going, please don't look there. Please don't look there. What so you might find. But then if you're just curious about it, all of a sudden, okay, maybe it's full of crap. Maybe it's not. And I was very skeptical when I started on this path. And I was like, oh, maybe I was wrong. And now I've studied lots of different things in the Himalayas and Andes and all over the place. And I do 40 years of Zen is my neurofeedback kind of digital mystery school where I spent 6 months with electrodes on my head, meditating, figuring out what's going on in there. And I teach people to do it because I feel like the more of an executive you are, the more of an entrepreneur you are, the more you're responsible for your state because people rely on you. That's the thing about being a CEO or a parent. If you're a parent, you're going to have to feed your kids and take care of them. And if you're a CEO and you have hundreds of employees, and I've been there, you're paying them. You have to make payroll every month, right? Otherwise, they don't eat and their kids don't eat either. So the amount of pressure goes up, which means your amount of personal development has to go up with it. Otherwise, you just get really, really stressed.
And stuck.
Yeah.
Like you get stuck. Like nothing's worse than like when you're just like, you can't figure it out. Like you can't solve the problem. You can't create. You can't innovate. Like that is just a horrible feeling when you know that part of growing and making more money is you have to be in more innovation. There has to be more creativity. There has to be like, how are we going to create this in a better, yummier? How are we going to bring in people that have never been in here before? How are we going to make sure we're retaining all the people that we have? We have to create more things so they don't get bored. Like it's the way everything works, and if you are stale and you're stuck, how are you going to create?
You won't. Your creativity will go away.
Yeah.
And this is why also a lot of big companies, they try to buy companies who can innovate because they can't do it because everyone gets stuck when it's a big company. And Forbes named Bulletproof one of the top 20 most innovative brands at least in the US when I was running it because I maybe over-indexed on that and then under-indexed on other operational things, which I found was a problem. If you're the voice of your company, that's a full-time job. And being CEO of a company is a full-time job.
Right.
And so it becomes, at least for me, a juggling match between those two. How many interviews can you do? And then how many operational reviews can you do? But you end up building a team.
I think it's interesting that you say that because we didn't have that at Equinox because of the time, and so we did a lot of press. There were months where we were in 40 different publications and stuff, but that's a lot different.
The press was different. It's just an interview with a reporter.
Exactly. So our energy was just always on Equinox. It was never on us. Like even as the face, it wasn't because other than like once in a while doing TV, you weren't the face. The face was Equinox.
Right.
And I feel like in some way, I like it that way. Like even now doing with Move Joy, when someone said to me, well, are you the face of it? And I'm like, Move Joy will be the face of it.
Yeah.
I will be the creator and I will speak about it. But truly all the focus and everything will be, and maybe that's just because that's how I'm comfortable. I'm not as comfortable being the face of anything. Like I'm more comfortable in what I'm creating, the principles, the value, how we're going to change people. It's not about me. Like I'm like more like, if my story, because I'm very open, being vulnerable. If my story in being messy and being broken at times and being at the bottom of that snake pit and how I got back up, if that story is going to inspire other people to go, wow, if she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Like, then I will share that story, but it will still never be about me. It will be about the program, the company. That's just a little bit of how I feel about that,
I appreciate that perspective, and it's hard to do it in today's world because I had no desire to be well known.
Right.
When I was starting Bulletproof. In fact, I was a computer hacker. I value my privacy more than most people, but I was willing to be the face of it.
Right.
And so I think you navigated that really well. Maybe it was easier before social media.
I think it was easier.
Now, if you guys want to see who I am, I am. 1,200 interviews later, you probably have figured out some consistencies, and you can usually spot BS after 200. But also I've come to, I'm learning from you as we speak. And so, to me, lifelong learning is a really big value. You've done something interesting with MoveJoy though, which is your new thing. And you're bringing this kind of unusual concept where, okay, people don't all live in the same place. And we're building these kind of hyper-focused communities that are laid on top of things. So people in different areas can work together, but there's still a community, and you're doing a lot of somatic experiencing things. Walk me through what you're doing with MoveJoy, because it's very different than anything else I've come across.
So first of all, I'd love to tell you a little bit of how I got there, because I think that would be during COVID, the beginning of COVID. I belonged to a lot of these different women entrepreneur groups, and I would see these women on Zoom, and from one week to the next, I'd be like, wow, I could just feel their life force going. Most of these women were single, living alone in New York City, powerhouse, business women, but like we're in a crazy time right now, right? And I'm like, ladies, you've got to move. Like, come on, we've got to move. So I would send them different people they should work out with. Now they were, up there anywhere from, 50 to in their 70s. And they were like, oh, I didn't like that class. I didn't like that class. I didn't like that class. I was trying anything. They weren't really able to be outside the way we were in California. So one of them made the ask. And at first I was thinking hello, I'm not an aerobic bunny anymore. I've done that in my 20s. I've graduated. I didn't think I was putting my leotards back on anytime soon, David. That was not my probable future. I have a really great life. I have a big life in Malibu. I have an amazing, really? But I was like, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I know I really could give them a really nice class that they would love. So I said, you know what, give me a week to put it together. We put it together, and it went from 5 people to 10 people to 20 people to 30. It just kept growing. And people can I ask people to come? And sure.
And you're doing this over Zoom?
All over Zoom.
Cool.
And again, everyone's so happy. But the magic was that I was noticing that everybody was getting on 15 minutes before class start to talk to each other.
Mm.
And I didn't even really know that until one day I got on 5 minutes early, and I was like, oh my God, they were all on and they're talking, and then they're staying on afterwards to chat. And I was like, I'm a friend collector. I collect friends. I collect people. I love people. That's my happiest place. And I think naturally when you do that, I'm always getting people together. I'm fixing everybody up for everything, for play dates with women, for love, for business, for everything. I just love connecting people.
You're kind of a matchmaker too, huh?
With everything. So that took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting that. And then I saw that. And then I started adding the breath work, because I've, been doing breath work for about 15 years. And I kept saying to them, guys, you really need to do some breath work. And first I would put them on sitting. And I'd say, let's sit and do the breath work. Everybody would go off.
Fall asleep?
No, they would leave. Wow. They would just shut down. They they would get off. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, oh, I didn't like that, Lavinia. I didn't like that.
So what kind of breath work? I mean, I did Art of Living for 5 years every day, and I did a lot of holotropic. Where is this?
Like, for instance, we stand up. Depends on the shape of somebody, but for this group now, and it goes, so you'll use your hands, and the first one will be as you're standing.
Okay. Similar to Art of Living.
Okay. So, but when people are not used to doing breath work like that, they feel all of a sudden, they're like, right out of the gate, I have them feeling good. They're like, oh my God,
right?
I feel so good. So now, then you take them like on the next one, which is, we loosen up the neck, and we do a little hops.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing some hopping, and then it's like, we open up the neck neck cracks a few times, and they're like, oh my God, it cracked. Like when I go to my chiropractor, like they started realizing that this movement is healing. Like they're feeling the healing of it. And then we do a little bit like we do open the heart, and we do this, and then we, where you're really, and I'm in there, like I want you to breathe, and you could just see breath of joy. And I say, no, if we all know what are the emotions, that sadness, that trauma. When you let it go, feel it right from the gut down. And you can, So by the time they do all this and they come up, you could just see. And then there'll be a point where they just start crying.
Wow. A lot of emotions can come up.
It's always shocking how much we hold. Like we do this one exercise where we do this, and we take a deep breath in, and we hold our breath. First of all, you get a little high. I say, yes, we're going to get you a little high on your own supply for sure. And they love that. But then all of a sudden, and then we do a couple of others. We do the bear, and we move that. And then you can just see, they'll be texting me afterwards, oh my God, my shoulders, I didn't realize how much I carry in there. I felt, it's really been amazing. And then of course we do a lot of this to release, because we hold so much in here, so it's a little, I always call it like the African. So it's like,
wow, so you're really moving the whole spinal cord forward.
No, and I tell them that every single organ is connected to your spine. So we're going to move that spine, front and back, side and side, twist and twist.
So super embodied, all right.
Exactly. So the movement is very much like that. But then we add a little bit of the cardio, but the cardio is all with breath.
Okay.
They're doing.
Okay. So it's very gentle, but they're getting the mental and energetic effects.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, we do something where I do this thing called move, joy, love, bliss, happiness, joy, love, bliss, happiness, but they move their feet and their hands. Okay. So you're literally working the brain.
Yeah, you're cross-patterning the brain. That has all kinds of effects. We're just figuring some of that stuff out.
So this has been built on all of that. So, even today when they were struggling, I'm like, guys, it's not about getting it. It's in the process of doing it that the brain is turning on. It doesn't matter if you get it or not. Just keep doing it. Say the words, because we want to use the words, and use the arms and do it. And it just keeps layering like that. So I always say the movement is simple, but the way I put it together with the breath and the movement and the affirmations, we have a whole series on courage. Because always, when you look at from positive to negative, courage is the first step on the positive. So, and that's because you're going into action. So it's the first step. So if you have courage to face your fear, to face your sadness, to face your grief, whatever it is, it's the first action point. So we have to be and how great to be able to move to courage. And I say to them, whatever you need more courage. Listen, I needed courage to start a new brand. Trust me, you always feel, God, am I going to be You know, is it going to be successful? And what if it isn't success? Like, there's all this stuff. Like, when I've been helping other people build their brands and scale their brands, but this is the first time I'm coming out and saying, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I'm doing it really because I see the white space. I see all these people that are not moving. Like, I really want to help get that going.
So when you're doing an online thing like this, like, how many people are these like really big now, or do you have like smaller groups?
No, right now we haven't launched yet. We're just been doing the beta, which has been out of my garage. The studio is being built right now, getting finished, and so we should be in the studio by right after January. So it's been a garage workout and everything, which has been amazing because I think there's even something so fun about that. Like, cool. It's real. You know, It's like we went from yesterday to today. And it was like, and again, it wasn't to build a brand. It was to really help my friends get out of this funk. And then when you look at, like, the Attorney General says that more people are dying from isolation and loneliness than anything, you're like, and not a lot of people are talking to that demographic. And I know that because I am that demographic. Like, I can go into any gym and figure it out because I'm a gym person. I mean, to a degree, I'm a gym rat, right? Mm-hmm. But when I take my friends, I have to hold their hand. It's not comfortable to be of a certain age and walk into these gyms because they're really not. I mean, there might be some YMCAs or whatever, but like most of the higher end, or you even go to wherever, the studios, they're all young. Like, you walk in there and there's all these girls and they're in their two-piece outfits and their shorts up to here, and nobody's catering to this market. They're really not catering to us. I mean, unless you're catering to us if you're talking to us about menopause, about supplements, about plastic surgery, about Botox, but you're really not talking to us about fitness, you know, because we're not inspired to get ripped. We're not inspired to look that way. Like, why? We want to feel good.
It feels like there's been a big shift in everyone because so many people feel bad now. Everyone wants to feel good. There are so many people in their 20s who are just fully out of energy. And I was that way in my 20s too, where I'm like, oh, that's the most valuable. Sure, abs would be nice or whatever, but like, I just want to feel good.
Right.
And for the first time ever in surveys, people have started saying, I care more about managing my stress than about losing weight. And this is a major shift. So it's funny, breath work will do it. Biohacking will do it. Meditation practices. So everyone's realized that the stress and the lack of energy is a thing. And I think it's worse in the US. And as you age, it gets worse for everyone. And we're seeing an epidemic amongst young people too.
Well, so I think there's also an epidemic of anxiety and depression.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
government-induced.
Yeah. You're probably right on that. There's just people, I've never heard of so many 8-year-olds who are having anxiety.
It's unheard of. And I say it's government-induced because of Bhutan. They have a gross national happiness product. They're the government's organized around that metric, and it's not in the US. Clearly, health is not a goal. No. If it was, we wouldn't spend so much and get so little. That's
truth.
You can see the truth in what people do, not in what they say, right? Well, it's fascinating to hear what you're up to. And if you're feeling attracted to MoveJoy, it's movejoy.life is a thing.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So guys, go to movejoy.life if this kind of breath work and somatic practice and movement sounds appealing to you.
And community, because we really are building community.
It's funny. People ask, they say, Dave, who listens to The Human Upgrade? The podcast. Well, let's see, we've got about 400 million downloads. We've been following demographics forever. And people from 20 to 80 listen to the show. And there's a peak in the 25 to 45, but it's not that strong of a peak.
Wow.
So people of every age, and they're saying, oh, biohacking is just for boys. I'm like, sorry, girls, 60% of biohackers are women and always have been. Sometimes it was 52% versus 50. So it turns out that this biohacking thing, it's about humans. And it's how do you get your energy back? How do you make your body do what you want? And it doesn't matter if you're like I was as a 300-pound early 20s guy. with no energy and brain fog and all the other stuff and arthritis saying, I just want to feel good, right? And I'd like to continue my entrepreneurial career. Or whether you're saying, okay, my kid just left the house. Like, what am I going to do now? It's always the same. I want my body to behave so that then I can work on my emotional stuff. And I want that to behave so that I can work on my spiritual stuff. And it's just the human condition for all of us, which is why I was so happy to have you on, because you've walked this path and you've shared, what was it like to start? Was it like when you're in the middle? What is it like when you've succeeded at your first thing and you're starting a new one? And since I believe we're all going to live a lot longer.
Yeah, I think.
You've got two or three more.
That was what I kind of thought to myself. I said, I think I'm here at least till I'm 100.
That was my next question. How long do you think you are here?
At least. So I'm thinking I have 40 more years. So you know what am I going to do in those years? Like, what am I going to do if I'm not impacting, if I'm not like in it? And I love working with people. Like, I love the people I'm working with and creating with them. And it keeps you young. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't just be going out to lunch. And I mean, look, I love to hike. I love to mountain bike, but I don't know. I need purpose.
40 years of hiking and mountain biking might get a little bit repetitive.
I know. And then I'm like, and traveling's great. I had a great fall. I went to Japan and then Korea and Tanzania, and it was amazing. But like, I don't want to travel right now. Like, I am so committed to, I don't know. I really feel very inspired, and I love feeling inspired at my age. Like, I love that. Not that I think I'm like so old or anything, but I love feeling inspired to like get this going and even going from the beginning. Like, before I had a little bit like, do I really want to do this? It's going to be so much work. What if it's not super successful? And then I just had to let that go. Like let that shit go, Lavinia. And
it's like getting a cold plunge. Like, I don't really want to get in. Fine, well. And once you're in, like, I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah.
Starting in company is not that different.
Right.
There's always resistance.
Yeah. So, I'm excited. And I love like even the surprise of where it could go. Like, because at the end of the day, your community tells you what they want. And I mean, if you connect with them, and I really believe it'll be a good connection, and they'll tell us what they want. So I'm even like so curious, like, where are they going to want to go? Like, how fun is it going to be able to like create that stuff for them on what they really like, what they want, not what I think or we think they want. But, like, I love that. Like, that's exciting to me, because before you know it, you're partnering with them. Mm-hmm. And like, when you have smart, great people, it's not just like, they're not a bunch of soldiers, like, it's not just like, I'm the guru and I'm going to tell you. Like, that's never been my way. Like, it's like, we're in partnership here. Like, we connect. Like, there's a connection. You tell me what you want. We see if that works. Like, I love that expression of business as well.
Beautiful. Thank you for coming on The Human Upgrade and sharing the story of Equinox and now Move Joy. It's fascinating to be able to learn because you've built something big and fantastic, and just the mindset. And I find it inspiring. And I'm hoping if you're watching the show or listening to the show, you just realize you have no idea where you're going to be in 10 years. No, nothing at all. You could start something tomorrow and it might get big. It might not get big, but you'll still get the experience of it. So you started something that got big. I started something that got big. I didn't know how big it would get. There was no way to know. Neither did you with Equinox, right?
Not at all.
Yeah. And with Move Joy, if it helps 1,000 people and you're suddenly like, I'm done, you still helped 1,000 people.
Right.
And if it helps a cajillion people, and Tony Robbins is saying, I was going to feed 1 billion people, but now I saw what Lavinia did, and I want to do that. Okay, then awesome. Either one of those is a win. Like, that's the whole point.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
That's what feels good. And you're listening to this, help the people who need help. It doesn't matter how many of you help. You just, if they need it, you're there, you can help, and things work out in the end. That's where I'm sitting today.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
If you like today's episode, you know what to do. I love reviews. You could try some Danger Coffee if you're not already on that stuff. It feels really different and tastes amazing. It's really good coffee. DangerCoffee.com. And I want you to go to movejoy.life if this episode was interesting for you, because you might find there's some breath work you can do that's a different flavor than you've seen before. And if nothing else, if you're an entrepreneur, hopefully this was inspiring. Thanks, Lavinia.
Thank you.
You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey.